Today I will show you how to create this beautiful seersucker-like fabric on any knitting machine that does have two fully operational beds. I'll be demonstrating on a Superba machine, but I will explain how to achieve it on others. You're looking at two photos of the same sample on the mannequin and on the floor. It has not been steamed yet in either photo, and you can see that it tends to roll, but only slightly, because the presence of the mannequin's body is enough to stop it. To totally halt the roll, you would need a little bit of steam, but don't overdo it because we don't want to ruin the textured character. The fabric design is loosely based on a full needle rib setup, and we're going to get there by knitting a tubular hem. Set up the needles to alternate when all come out, because all will come out. Use a very small stitch size, and at plain stockinette settings, knit across, creating a zigzag row. On the Superba family of machines, the upside-down V button is the stockinette setting. Pass-ups NN, brother N on both carriages. Silver Reed Studio and Singers may have stockinette labeled on the dial or call it plain knitting, depending how old they are. Hang the ribber comb and your weights in the zigzag row, and then rack so that the needles do oppose perfectly. With the stitch size set as small as the machine will knit nicely, knit two tubular rows. That's one carriage knits going left, one carriage knits going right. Circular arrow key for the Superba group, one part button on each bed for brothers, CX for pass-up. With Silver Reeds and Singers and Studios, it's a combination of the set levers and the cam lever position. You know, they have their little charts to show you how to set up and change the setup. This is the chart found on page 15 in the SRP 50 manual. Now we want to continue on to knit an entire tubular hem. So instead of closing the cast on in some way, just leave the settings where they are, because we're already set for tubular knitting. Increase to the main stitch size and knit however many rows you want, but in this case I chose 12, and an even number is preferable. That's how this hem was created. Now this hem has a treatment at the very edge, a tiny piece of piping so that both ends can match. I have a separate video on the way that will show you how to do that. Now we will set up for the main fabric. Rack so that the needles alternate again, and transfer stitches to the configuration shown. So at each end, there are two on the main bed that don't have any opposing them on the front bed. In the space between the second and third needle on the back or main bed, there should begin to be pairs working across of needles in place on the front bed. The pattern continues like that until on the far other end of the bed there are two back or main bed needles that don't have anything across from them or nearly across from them on the front bed. Pretty generous weight is required by most machines, certainly the Superba. Everybody but pass-up knitters needs some, and honestly, pass-up knitters do benefit from some. The reason I'm using a bent probe rather than a double eye needle for my transfers is because I'm not transferring straight across, because the needles are already racked. From now on, the back or main bed will knit stockinette at all times, so set up for that. And the front or ribber bed needs to alternate, tucking one row and knitting the second. Here are the settings for the various kinds of machine you're likely to be using. Now knit one row moving from right to left and with the carriage on the left, and we won't count that one in the repeat of the pattern stitch. With the setup we've arranged now, knit 8 rows, you'll end up on the left. Now all the way across the front, there are pairs of needles within the outer limits of the knitting that haven't been used. Push them up into work and knit another 8 rows. When those rows are complete, we're going to empty out the needles that we just brought into work and transfer them all to the back or main bed. Make sure that you're left with all the original needles that were in the work on the front or rubber bed still in work. Put those empties out of work, knit 8 rows, return them to work, and the rest of the fabric is just a repeat of that 16-row pattern. We're going to empty out needles, moving the stitches to the back bed, knit 8 rows with gaps 2 needles wide on the front bed. Then just push them back up into work. They will pick up stitches and start knitting, and that's what creates the fabric. You may realize that under normal circumstances, 2 adjacent needles will not pick up and start knitting. But this is with 2 beds, and the 2 beds are alternating. So there is a stitch between each needle that has to perform that action. The fabric produced with this method looks nice on both sides, so either could be used as the right side, but it is not reversible in the sense that the 2 sides look the same. I'm writing a series of simple patterns using this textured fabric for News and Views, and it will be coming out sometime in 2024. Here are a few more tips that may help you. I'm using number 1 yarn on my Superba, which is a standard gauge machine. Stitch size 5/5 worked for me. On Japanese machines, you're more likely to need 5 on the main bed and 3 on the front bed, or 6 and 4. That's because Japanese style ribbers often have about a 2-number skew between what produces the same stitch size on one bed as the other. For mid-gauge and bulky machines, double bed fabrics will work best using number 2 and number 3 yarn. In plain knitting, they will knit much larger yarn than that, but because we're basing this on full needle rib, where at times every single needle is in work, plus there's some tucking, we can't get by with the maximum yarn size. I have news that ties in with this video, so here it is. I will be changing my website within the year from its present location and completely reworking it. In fact, the new site is actually already up. It's fairly complete, but not totally complete at this point. There will be quite a few free articles on the site that will be easier to find than on the old site. One explaining how to make this seersucker stitch on all kinds of machines is going to be there. In fact, it's already up, and I will leave a link for you in the program notes. You may also look around the site while you're there. It's complete enough that it's worth doing. At this point, the site has a generic name because I'm using the free version, and also because I cannot yet transfer my domain name from the older site to the newer site. It can only be attached to one. The decision about what to do when the old site goes dark is not completely formed yet, so I will just keep you posted. In the meantime, get to know the new one, look around, have fun, and check out this article if it will help you.